So this time we're just gonna do how I actually do reading. Cause last time we just kind of sat on Stephen King, and like that book doesn't really have an ending. I didn't really totally understand what the hell the book was. But I know he gave the entrance, and basically the way that book goes, that story goes, that story rolls out, is like he's driving to work every day for like 15 years, dropping acid. Everyone who's actually thought for themselves is pretty interesting, and those kind of things make you be like, how much of this is foreign? Is my brain doing this? What the fuck? So like you definitely at least can't stop it at the brain. You know, you gotta like know that your hair is antennas to other people's brains, some shit like that. It's all just theoretical imagination work, anyways. Not your ugh. I don't know. Okay. So yeah, I normally read books is like I'll read like 10, 20, like pretty much a chapter, like 15 pages per book, and then I'll switch. No, I already I already read the language of kindness. I already read the language of kindness last night. I don't know. I mean, I didn't get home till like 3:30. And I was fucking on my phone before I did anything. Then I'm gonna read this, and then I gotta find I'll read that fucking one of these books when I make bread. Library books, obviously. Yeah. Like an hour, and then I gotta play my cat for a bit, and then just kind of walk through straight up. Uh, I really like this. There. it's it's a fun system, I think. Part of me wishes I had like 5 phones, but now I gotta keep them all plugged in, and that is kind of terrifying. Like even to the point where I don't know why the hell I put water on that side. So, yeah, so this book is called "BLITZED Drugs in the Third Reich" by Norman Orhiller. Aller, Norman Aller. Yes, yeah, fucking Nazis did math. They didn't just rape Jews. They did fucking math. They started the entire pharmacology of selling people uppers and down, and like this regime. Like they invented the whole workforce movement so far. You know, and Hitler, he liked his heroin. Like, out of all the drugs I figured out the taste for, heroin is the one I know the least. That's the one I want to know the most, and that's fucking dangerous. It's like I don't really care for like weed's buzz, like weed, like weed and alcohol and all those, like okay, I'm like, no, give me my fucking attention, no, stop, fuck, like I'm constantly fighting myself with those kind of things, but like for some reason, for a cure reason, basically, it's when God tells you you might like something, when God tells you, oh yeah, you'd love something, don't fuck with it, then you gotta fuck with it, you know? uh, okay, so I'm in the middle of like chapter 5 or something. Sugar. Even though Hitler did not suffer from a lack of vitamins, since he hardly ate anything but fruit, vegetables, and salads, he pounced on the tablets as if they were apples on the Hesperides. After all, Additional vitamins could never hurt. They can. The fuck do you think vitamin-osis is? It's when you fucking make a full layer of a vitamin to in your intake valves to the point where you can't get other shit because you have too much fucking vitamin A and then you die. Yeah, that does need to be a little. I'm kind of worried about it. Like, yeah, I put it in the same spot but underneath. Looks like a fucking meth house. Soon he was consuming several of these gilded gifts every single day, and Mortal advised the Engel Apotheke, a kind of court pharmacy in the Reich chancellery, always to keep a small store of about 50,000 multi-enough bars. He must ensure that there is never a gap in supplies. He kept the recipe strictly under lock and key and instructed the pharmacist only supply the product to him in person or to Hitler's valet. It's an international bestseller. So again, the book is Blitzed Drugs is the Third Reich. Third Reich by Norman Ohler. Now came the second step in Mortal's marketing strategy. Right, he's selling meth to people at this point, by the way. Which, again, with that, not necessarily that I want to be in control, but I want to be in composed, because the best I can do in this situation is stay composed. And does that mean, most of the time, that, I find it vast disinterest in laughing and crying and, like, being grumpy? And basically all emotional reactions just kind of tell me that I'm not, allocating my energy properly. In which, then apathy is an emotion too, so you're like, right? Okay. Now came the second step in Mortal's marketing strategy. For the senior officers of the Wehrmacht and important members of the staff, he made a brand stamped SRK, Sonderanfertigung, and Reichskanzler. It's too slow. Yeah, no, I put that at 1.25. Okay, the second step in Mortal's marketing strategy. Again, but senior officers of the Wehrmacht and important members of the staff, he made a brand stamped SRK, Schadenfertigung Rastanzler, special product of the Reich Chancellery, wrapped not in gold but in silver. Soon the senior officers were fighting over the moderately tasty sweets, which were obstinately consumed at military briefings. Mortal wrote contentedly from the theater's headquarters to his wife, Muda Moulton, who's been a great success here. All the gentlemen are very appreciative of it and recommend it to your families at home. The success laid the foundation for large-scale deals with the mass organizations of the Third Reich. I still don't really understand like low octave stuff because it always feels like I want to be able to ramp it up faster. I don't really like grab myself in slow. The way I see it, there's a bunch of bodies in my trunk, and when I try to drive, the bodies are just fucking fat. So I gotta like roll around to the body, get minced up, and fall through the hole where the tire is supposed to go. Spare tire. So I just try to keep a consistent amount of effort, and just know that someone's observation is weighing me down currently, because I exist in their imagination, and they are trying to fix me internally, so that I can fit into their narrative who they are, because they don't want me to be better than them. They want me to be a thing that's a little bit too bright, too something whatever, annoying, ugly, descriptive, aloof, fucking stupid, you know? So they're wishing I would be something more than I am. Even when they see me outright, they still wish they would see me again. And when I'm not there, being there is something more than I am. So. This success laid foundation for large-scale deals with the mass organizations of the Third Reich, shamelessly exploiting his influence as Hitler's personal physician. War won over the German Labor Front, the AF, with several multi operations. Huge quantities were ordered. I should probably do some next videos. Or just do this. World won over the German Labor Front, DAF, for several multi operations. Huge quantities were ordered, sometimes 260 million, then even 390 million. Overall, the DAF took almost a billion tablets. The goal was to heighten the performance of munitions workers and increase the resistance to infectious diseases. The doctor also approached the Secret Service, who received 100,000 free Northern Martin biscuits as an affectionate gift. These were supposed to get the Mountain Corps in Norway hooked. At a personal discussion with Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, Morrow touted the usefulness of Multimultin in Scandinavia. It was demonstrably clear that an increased intake of vitamin C good night vision, and up there it was often dark. The SS seemed pleased with the result and ordered more. I'm gonna double this.
By 2 o'clock at the latest. That would leave plenty of time for an afternoon nap, a luxury he could rarely afford. We're switching on dinner on Congress Street. Tomorrow, he will present himself at the Conference Center.
But even received special. The commercially focused doctor also fixed his sights on the ground troops. Must it be offering Vitamoltin to the army again? He wrote in a letter, but when he approached Rank, the dealer for the Waymark, Oral found he was banging his head against a brick wall. The advisory defense psychologist used stronger stuff, wasn't impressed by a near vitamin preparation, refused to pack the bars and the troops' equipment. But the Vitamoltin business worked without the army. Morel could even cope with the rejection by the Luftwaffe, though he did take it personally and plot against Dr. Erich Hipka, leader of the Luftwaffe Medical Service, and the base of Volstad, a senior staff surgeon general, is trying to disavow a valuable preparation and circulating a letter seeking to defame me. Morel wrote to Hipka superior, the Reich aviation minister, Göring, I cannot calmly accept such a mode of behavior, which has happened on duty. If it had happened in private life, I would go to court. So I ask you, my dear Reich Marshal, to be so kind as to make a just judgment. In deepest respect for you, Herr Reich Marshal, I remain yours, Hail Hitler. Göring reacted, and Hipka had to go. This was a triumph for the physician. His own rise, becoming a pan-European pharmaceutical entrepreneur, was off to a good start. Long on, the Battle of Britain. After the fiasco of Dunkirk, for which the blame was laid at his door, Göring, the fat man, tried desperately to appear as a radiant, lordly figure he imagined himself to be when under the effects of morphine. Yeah, this is good. Operation Sea Lion was planned, the invasion of Great Britain with ground units, for the precarious sea journey of thousands of German soldiers across the English Channel. Air supremacy also had to be achieved so as not to risk the troops. This was Goering's job, as well as his great opportunity to impress Hitler and justify his great power, as well as the extravagant lifestyle that went with it. The Battle of Britain was beginning. To force Britain to his knees in the air, Goering was first bombed logistical Air Force targets, aerodomes, hangars, and landing strips. Plans. This successful strategy was changed, however, after the British bombed the Berlin districts of Kreuzberg and in Wedding in a night raid on August 25th, 1940. Hitler ordered an attack on London on September 4th to demoralize its population. Fear tactical air because it meant that enemy airfields will no longer prime targets. Consequently, the British were able to strengthen their defenses. Bombs fell on the British capital and other towns. Over 40,000 civilians had lost their lives by the end of the campaign. These were the first systematic terror attacks on the war. On the island, there was a of the war. On the right, on the island, there was a grim comment. London can take it. The Royal Air Force (RAF) struck resolutely back. Countless German planes were shot down over England, and the British flew retaliatory attacks against German cities. The clash escalated. Soon it became too dangerous for the Luftwaffe to operate by day. One bomber pilot described the situation. We launched very often late, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and then you were over here in London. Over here in London. You are over here, over London or some other English city about an hour, about 1 or 2 in the morning. And of course, when then you are tired. So you took 1 or 2 Pervitin tablets, and then you are alright again. I had a lot of bad operations, you know. And of course, the commander always has to give his weight about him. They took Pervitin as a precautionary measure. Imagine the commander being tired in battle. Yes, please. It's not going to work. One wouldn't abstain from Pervitin because of a little health scare. Who cares if they're doomed to come down at any moment anyway? Fair enough. This certainly wasn't a one-off remark. There were no statistical studies of Pervitin among the Luftwaffe, and by historiographical standards, there is little supporting evidence of the compressive use of the Speedemann among pilots. Apart from Reich's original order of 35 million doses for the army of the Luftwaffe and the Luftwaffe controlled sky. Control the skies was essential to the win the war, and to do that, you need to. Control of the skies was essential to win the war, and to do that, you need the right materials, steel, and manpower. Both had to function perfectly and keep going longer than the enemy could. Well, the Mercenaries were technically inferior to Spitfires. The Luftwaffe's use of drugs was far ahead of that in the RAF. Pervitin had several nicknames that indicated its use. Pilot salts, Stuka pills, Goering pills. One commander reported from the Mediterranean. On my knee pocket, there is a hand-length strip of linen covered with cellophane, with 5 or 6 milk white tablets stuck to it, the size of a chocolate bar. The label reads, how big are these fucking... The label reads, Pervitin, tablets against fatigue. I open the bag and tear first 2, then 3 of these tablets into the pad. Take the breathing mask off my face for a moment and start chewing the tablets. Oh, okay, so they're chewable. It tastes repellently bitter and floury, and I've got nothing to wash them down with. After a while, the effects kicked in. The engine is running cleanly and calmly. I'm wide awake, my heartbeat thunders in my ears. Why is the sky suddenly so bright? My eyes hurt in the harsh light. I can hardly bear the brilliance. If I shield my eyes with my free hand, it is better. Now the engine is humming evenly without vibration. Far away, very far away. It's almost like silence up here. Everything becomes immaterial and abstract, remote, as if I were flying above my plane. To landing reality was a strange world for his donked pilot. I wonder how much of so people were like, yeah, the fucking Nazis astral project. Like that's not, you can't really use astral projection to look for fucking weaknesses in a system. You can't use the authentically altruistic nature of the projecting your imagination, of importing your imagination location to find what is actually in location. Yeah, I can imagine there's a fucking dragon eating me right now. I just can't see it. Imagine there's a dragon like fixing to eat me right now. All I have to do is look at it. So if I just don't look behind me, that's fine. I was like, that mean that is. Alright. I get my course precisely. In spite of my euphoric indifference and my seemingly wit to say, upon my day I find a place. It's a complete stasis. Nothing moves. There's no one to be seen. Rumble of the hangars for lonely looms between the bomb craters. As soon as I roll onto the squadron stand, my right tire bursts. I've probably driven over a bomb splinter. Later, I meet Duchess Berlin and ask him in passing what kind of crap this perfect really is. Then it might be better to warn pilots in advance. When he learns that I've taken 3 towels, he nearly faints and forbids me to touch a plane from outside for the rest of the day. As hopped up as the Germans might have been, this couldn't give them the advantage over the Royal Air Force, which was plainly better run. The Battle of Britain was lost by the Reich, Germany's first defeat in this war. Hitler did call off Operation Sea Lion and thus on invasion on Britain. He looked for a new leader for his war. Goring suffered no consequences resulting from his failure. He still held court in the huge building of the Reich Aviation Ministry, but a pair of stone blocks on Williamsburg. Red Reich war flags emblazoned with the swastika fluttered confidently above, as if to point out unequivocally the winds were subject to the power of this government, and particularly to that of the Reich Marshal. But anyone who passed through the big cast iron gate and crossed the board for court stepped into the realm of chaos, of unbridled alcohol and drug abuse, of intrigues and general mismanagement. The conditions in Göring's 3,000-room fortress, which today houses the Federal Ministry of Finance, were symptomatic of the regime's lost the political reality and the wrong track that Germany had set off on. An officer described the Reich Marshal's appearance. We struggled to keep a straight face. He dons a white silk blouse-like shirt with flowing sleeves and over a yellow sleeveless fur-lined suede jacket. With this, he sports long medieval-looking bloomers, and around his waist a broad gold-studded leather belt with a short Celtic sword dangling from it. Long silk stockings and golden yellow saffron leather sandals complete the picture. The face of the powerful minister was covered in makeup, and his fingernails were painted red. Often during discussions, Göring, once the opium content of his blood had dropped, felt so deranged that he would leave the room abruptly without a word of explanation. Then, returning a few minutes later, plainly much refreshed, a general described one such surprising transformation. Göring had the air of being newborn. He looked magnificent and fixed his sparkling blue eyes on us. The difference in his whole appearance between the first and second parts of our conference was notable. For me, it was clear that he had been taking some sort of stimulant. These frequent escapes from reality did not help Göring's official duties. So the precondition for holding a senior post in his office was not so much one's qualifications as one's entertainment value. Except aside criticisms of one of his close colleagues, General Eleazar, whom Göring himself described as his laziest general, with one remark: "I need someone I can drink a bottle of red wine with in the evening." Oh, fuck you. You're wasting your time. Similar considerations may also have played a part in the appointment of Ernst Wiedemann as General Luftzegmeister, the captain of the planes. administered aircraft. One of the most influential positions in Third Reich. Admittedly, after the French Renaissance, Udet was very popular and his most successful surviving fighter pilot with any nation in the First World War. But this exceptionally gifted flyer in Bon Vivier, who enjoyed his cameo appearances in Millennium Riefenstahl films, struggled with his desk job at the top level of leadership. Goering couldn't care less, however. Treatment of Udet was a particularly impressive example of how preciously he ran his ministry, where the concept of administrative supervision was unheard of. The Reich aviation minister and his Generalstabsmeister got together. They'd like to reminisce about the good old days. Let's do this right. Oh yeah, we got to actually let's see. When they had fought aerial battles together in the First World War, hiding cocaine. On the other hand, they were less keen on talking about current arrangement problems, the complex process of developing new types of aircraft, and other similar intricate matters. Hyde's opening speech at the ministry in Utah, his face cloudy and terribly hungover, admitted that it would be unwise to expect him to perform many administrative duties. The only problem was that he was now in charge of up to 24 different offices. Soon, in a state of indescribable chaos, Udat, who was known to serve cognac at meetings throughout the day, and to take methamphetamine in enormous quantities to balance out the effects of alcohol. Was notorious for extraordinary mismanagement, even within the inefficient Reich aviation ministry. It's possible that Göring was referring to Udat when he observed, "There are departments you have no idea about, but all at once they appear, and promptly some mess happens, and swiftly you discover there's been a department there for years, and no one knows anything about it." In all seriousness, it's happened a few times. There are people who have been thrown out 3 times, and then they reappear in a different department and become bigger and bigger. Udat particularly liked to spend his days drawing characters, often enough of himself. Whenever possible, he crept off home, where he ran a small private bar decorated with trophies from his world travels, and always surrounded himself with friends because he could not bear to be alone. Although he just wanted to be sitting in a plane instead of flying, there was no time for that now. Udet was imploding under the burden of his constantly increasing responsibilities. On the course of 1941, he shoveled pervitin into his mouth in dangerous quantities to keep himself capable of functioning. In that way, he personified the hubris of German warfare, which had overstretched itself and lost contact with reality long ago. Our defeat was caused by Udat. Hitler, of all people, would later claim. That man concocted the most nonsensical state of affairs I've ever seen in the history of the Luftwaffe. And that was saying something. In the German theater play, most often performed after the war, the Devil's General, the dramatist Karl Zuckmeyer gave his friend Udet var too flattering a monument in the figure of the honorably tragic, nonchalant swashbuckler, Air Force General Harris. Udet is not worthy of such a heroic status. At best, one might say in his favor that he unwittingly might have done great damage to the system through his incompetence and drug addiction. So he no longer so he is no more and no less than a buffoon. A historical curiosity, he embodies those deviant qualities that historians usually ignore. On November 17, 1941, a report Break it dead. On a live fuck. Negative 22. The German news service came over the ticker. General Sachs-Meyer, Air Force Marshal Udat, while testing a new weapon, suffered It was such a severe accident that he died of his injuries on the way to the hospital. Führer was ordered to state funeral for an officer who was lost so tragically while carrying out his duty. In fact, Udet had fired a bullet into his head at the Grand Villa on Salafirme. LA and West End, Berlin's most exclusive residential area, had a strip delegated all the 1,000 technical and organizational problems of the Luftwaffe back to his old fellow soldier from the First World War, just before he brought his intoxicated life to an end with a bang. Udet inscribed one last message beside his deathbed. Iron Man, you have deserted me. The suicide of the self-aggrandizing Udet anticipated the downfall of the Third Reich. As Goering walked behind the coffin at the state funeral with metallic morphine-doped expression and muttered something about one of the greatest heroes in German history. The wagon mark was getting stuck in Russia. It began the military medical academy in the Invalidenfreudhof, only a few steps from the place where Otto Rank had tested Pervin for the Weimar. Udet's grave can still be seen today. Just what the world was waiting for. On September 13, 1940, the Milan Daily Corriere della Sera reported on a carriage bill used by the Germans, which had gone from medicine to secret weapon. The military effectiveness of this Piero del Coraggio, the article said, wasn't a match for the Sukkobom, but it did guarantee the German general staff beyond uninterrupted operational capability of the soldiers. Britain went on to study and eventually use benzodrine, which has fewer side effects than Pervitin, as a result of the Milan Peace. The article provided the reassuring explanation that the Germans' relentless fighting power could be explained chemically rather than ideologically. The British Broadcasting Company immediately produced a feature on the provision of Pervin to the German pilots. As a result, a controversy at the highest level of the civil servants broke out in Berlin. Vito Conti, the Reich held Führer, who was critical of Pervin, wrote to the army. Medical inspector, I would be grateful if you would tell me. Tell me in what quantities and with what degree of success Pervitin is actually being administered to members of the Luftwaffe. I would also like to know your attitude towards this issue. I cannot approve the prescription Pervitin. After repeated declarations of the harmfulness of this substance, I have wondered whether stricter regulations should be introduced in the prescription of Pervitin, perhaps then defining it as an intoxicating drug. Heil Hitler. So this letter made little impression on the army. It was not until a month later that their new army medical inspector, Professor Siegfried Hindloser, wrote, British propaganda can British propaganda has claimed several times that the German Weimar is only capable of its achievement thanks to drugs. The fallacy of these reports by London radio is apparent from the fact that they have German panzer divisions in France marching on drugs. fact is that Pervitin was only used at that time by individuals in an vanishingly small quantity. Clearly why, because Hand-Loser must have been aware of both the 35 million tablets ordered from the Western campaign and Norenke's report from France. Conti could not leave the matter alone. Separately, he fought for his ideological ideas of a poison-free Aryan nation. At the same time, he misjudged the realities of the geopolitical competition of the Second World War and his crying need for doping. In an act of depression, he engaged a scientist friend to write, under the headline The Pervitin Problem, first major critical piece in the favorite drug of the Germans, regarding the dangers of the stimulant and its violently addictive properties. In typical Nazi terminology, he called for Pervitin to be eradicated wherever we find it, and stressed that anyone who was addicted to it was degenerate. In fact, the article touched a nerve in scientific circles and caused a Pervitin dependency. We're now discussed more and more frequently whether it was doctors who consumed several doses a day or medical students who took a similar number of tablets and were then unable to sleep. You sleep for nights, scratching your skin, judging your skin, bloody looking